Hello, Scott.
Hey, Greg. Man, what a news day it
It
is. I
is
mean, there are so many stories going on now that any one of them would be a thing that should dominate the news, and we got like
it
three or
is.
four.
Exactly. And today's September 10th, the day before 9/11, and we're going to launch it out here with the tragic death here of political, in my opinion, a very early icon, Charlie Kirk, an activist at 31 years old. He's the founder of Turning Point USA. Turning Point USA is a very changing, your lifestyle kind of movement that has really revolutionized the youth culture
They are
and the college students for conservative values and conservative thinking.
they have been very impactful.
And he founded it,
Yeah.
and very young at a very young age.
Well, I mean, think about how long they've been doing it, and he's only 31.
Exactly. He's done more stuff at his young age than most political activists or politicians or elected officials have influenced people in 20 or 30 years. I mean, he's a generational type of figure. He's that charismatic. He's that likable. And he's very close friends with one of the guys that we don't really like too much, Matt Gaetz. But Matt Gaetz did have a good friend with Charlie Kirk. And Charlie was a great influential leader and a very good person. And for him to be shot at an event today in Utah on September 10th, the day before 9/11. Wow.
And there are all kinds of speculation over who it is. They've arrested a couple of
Yeah, we
people
don't know yet.
and then subsequently let go. So early in this conversation, I want to say, don't start doxing people and throwing enormous. I mean, you don't have this rush that they seem to have to be the first one to be able to cast the first stone on these
Exactly.
people. You know, this will be very consequential. And I know that there are a lot of bad figures out there that are celebrating his demise. And there was just before we got on, I saw a posting of someone who says, "I bet it was this guy," and it was a trans person who said, and there's going to be something big happening tomorrow. Well, I mean, who knows? Maybe after the speech, they were planning on throwing tomato soup on him or something like that, or whatever. You don't know.
Exactly. We don't know. We need to let the
So,
investigators do their job and
yeah.
find out who really did this and quit getting everybody else's opinions and suppositions all get in the way of it. The fact, though, is that it's probably somebody who does not like conservative values. We
Well,
can
I
probably
mean,
assume that.
right. Of course, it's going to be someone like that. But the problem is that someone who dislikes conservative values, who says some kind of creepy stuff, isn't automatically the guilty person.
Exactly. But it does show a trend here, though, that the left is angry. The left wants to silence free speech. I just heard Laura Ingraham on earlier tonight on Fox Radio. And I mean, the left is basically trying to make sure that college campuses do not invite anybody to these college campuses anymore because the liability is going to be so high. There's not going to be, I mean, it basically stifles any type of freedom of speech. Now, I remember back when I was in college and we would have speakers like Alan Keyes, I'm dating myself, and David Horowitz and people like that come to college campuses all throughout the 70s and 80s and 90s, back when we were in school. And there were protests, but there were not shootings. There were peaceful protests. And maybe some of them were throwing things every now and then, but they were not guns.
Well, you mark my words. There's a that the left is far more likely to stop allowing speakers of any variety to come to their campus than they are to allow real freedom of speech. And they're going to justify it with this, knowing full well that, don't worry, we'll keep imposing our speech codes on the students through the classes. We don't have to have
Right.
these separate events.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea here is that while they're trying to deflate any type of freedom of speech in the First Amendment, they're also trying to, at the same time, tear apart and destroy the Second Amendment and try to say, yeah, this is a reason why we need more gun control, more gun laws. I mean, we don't even know who this is. We have no idea if the gun was done legally or not. Like we've said in the past, it's not about guns, it's about culture. It's about the conscience of our culture is sick and broken. Just like the people are all forgot about the shooting in Minnesota 2 weeks ago from the trans person who was angry because of the policies of the Catholic Church. We forgot about that, didn't we?
And I read another thing. Someone was complaining about, the politicians in Minnesota that were shot as well. And at the end of the day, it's just, the the reason that they aren't talking about it very much is because we've had the conversation so many times. We already know how it's going to go.
I mean, we had a school shooting in
I mean,
Colorado, I guess, today.
the people on the left are going to say, "Don't you have any, sympathy or empathy or whatever for these
Right.
people that were hurt by this?" And the people on the right are going to talk about the constitutionality about it. And at the end of the day, these people, whatever legislators are going to be out that are going to be out there, are going to propose legislation that will not solve the problem that prompted the legislation. So whatever you can be guaranteed that whatever that they try to put forward would not have would not have hindered this event at all, because
No, I
that's what
mean,
they always do. You want to know what would have
exactly.
you want to know what would hinder this and other shootings? Open carry.
Open
Because
carry might help. If
like the
everybody
man
had a
said,
gun,
like the man said, an armed society is a polite society.
it is. And a safe society, as well as being polite. I mean, if everybody else had a gun around, they probably would have stopped the shooter before he got the shot off to
Whether
the
they would have
victim.
seen him or not, having lots of people around you with who are armed gives you pause.
It's kind of like the whole National Guard thing here in the blue cities. It's not the cops that were, it's not the National Guard that are arresting everybody. It's making it safer. It's a show of force. The National Guard being there and the presence that they're giving to law enforcement and the authority of law enforcement to keep safety prevailing. That's what's making a difference. Is that, I mean, it's people really don't get it. And I don't really understand how they don't get it. Then again, after you saw the video of the stabbing in North Carolina on the train where the guy walked off the train dripping in blood and nobody gave a damn. It's kind of like that old Seinfeld episode, the very last episode of Seinfeld. Remember whenever they were all arrested for a year for violating the Good Samaritan law because they were watching a guy get robbed or his car stolen. They're laughing and taking videos of him and jeering at him. And basically, this girl was stabbed to death. This Ukrainian refugee from Ukraine was over here trying to get a better life. She was stabbed to death on video camera in a horrific way. And nobody was doing anything to fight the guy or to stop it or anything. And he walked off the train. Nobody cared.
And they recorded some of his calls in the jail and conversations with his sister, and he doesn't even know why he did it. He says that's so weird. Why would anyone just stab this person for no reason? I didn't even know that woman. She never said a word to me.
It's hate and anger, and that's goes back to what we said before. It's all about the culture. This culture has got to get fixed. I mean, and it's kind of like those old Batman movies. Batman was like, "Is Gotham is just it's evil Gotham or something like that." And it's not, it is that to oversimplify it, but at the same time, I mean, there has to be some sort of approach here to rectify this.
Well, for one thing, so we need to get away from this belief that it's not okay to criticize people who are living their life badly, who are abandoning
Exactly.
their kids, who are who are committing crimes, are not trying to become self-sufficient.
You mean arrest people that are doing bad things?
Yeah, and
Why?
arresting people that are actually doing bad things.
Which brings crime down, like in DC, and now crime's dropping in Baton Rouge, and crime's dropping in other areas. Where once again, going back to the National Guard and the show of force and everything, actually arresting people that do bad things actually makes a difference, and not being afraid of the whole political correct bullshit, everything else on this thing.
Yeah, one of the things I love about Trump, what Trump did in D.C. and is threatening to do in other cities, is he really kind of has those Democrat officials over a barrel when you think about it. If they let him come in, then they will have to listen to a bunch of criticism from their party and from people activists within their area, because they're cooperating in any way with Trump. If they don't cooperate with Trump when he comes in and crime goes down, then then they're kind of in a bad situation, because if they don't let him in and they activate their police force, like the state police or whatever, and crime goes down, Well, why the hell didn't you do that months ago, years ago,
Exactly.
if you knew how to do it? Why did you have to wait for Trump to threaten to bring in federal forces to do it? And if Trump brings in the federal forces, well, then Trump had to come in and clean up your mess. It is a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation that no elected official wants to be in.
It's almost like they want to practice government just to practice government without actually using government in its best manner to protect and keep people safe. They'd rather them just walk in circles and spit at each other or chase their tails instead of, having any kind of efficiency whatsoever. I mean, it's kind
And
of like
you and I
today I went
both
to the
know
city of Palm Coast. I
you
live
and
in
I
Palm
both know
Coast, Florida here.
yeah, you and I
What?
both know the reason they don't do anything about it is because they are afraid it will mess up some other thing that they're trying to do.
And also, continuous problems creates continuous solutions, which creates continuous paychecks.
Indeed, indeed, it is all about making money.
It's,
If you
I mean,
fix, why kill the golden goose?
Yeah, I live in Palm Coast, Florida, and I went to the city a holiday because there was a code enforcement issue we had because we had a pool, and they were like, "Oh, you had to have a pool permit." And I went to this window, and this window just said, "Oh, you had to have a permit." But I said, "Okay, so how do I do that?" You have to go to this window over here. Like, where's that window at? She says, "This is right next to me." I'm like, "Oh, well, so you can only talk about the complaint of the permit, not talk about the rectification or the solution of the permit." She says, "Yeah, they give you the solution, I give you the problem." I was like, why don't we just have one person do both?
Crazy talk.
Because it doesn't work like that. I mean, and government is set up to where they had to have so many different, I guess, paid attendees or paid personnel. Or if you actually look up all the links of how much these people are paid, they're actually paid pretty good. You and I both looked it up one time, like, just throw it out there real quick. An average city manager of like a city of like around 5 or 6 thousand people in the state of Florida is making around 130,000 a year. Not
Easily.
bad, really. And the same city manager of a city like Pensacola, 60,000 people, is also making 100,000, 130,000 a year. It's kind of like and so, I mean, maybe they're just, fulfilling these positions to fulfill them. Basically, a lot of relatives are usually working at them, and depending on where you live, I'm not saying that blanketly anywhere, but, theoretically, that could be a problem or a possibility. But the whole thing here is that the efficiency of the government fixing anything and solving the problem is not there. And so you have to go outside the government to do it. That's where, the nonprofits need to come in. Not the nonprofits who are trying to victimize everybody, but the ones who are trying to create solutions for people. And that's one problem is that nonprofits have fallen into the same schism that government has. They just want to keep on creating problems and creating problems and creating problems. They don't want a solution either. And that's the problem here. Nobody wants to solve this damn problem here.
No,
I mean, we had somebody shoot at the president of the United States before he was president. We had a guy running for president who was the incumbent president who didn't even have his mind together, and they kept lying to us about that. We have, this continual, perpetual motion of lies and deceit, and we wonder why the culture's like this. We had a shooting in Colorado today in a school. A few injured.
how often does this do they have to say something, make an accusation against Trump that is literally within a few weeks, that is enthusiastically pursued to start with, and then within a few weeks is found out to be completely a lie? How many times does that have to happen before we decide maybe it's all a bunch of bull?
It is. I mean, Charlie Kirk was a great, great speaker for the cause. I mean, if you actually see some of his interviews, which
Okay, everybody, you've probably heard the situation that happened in North Carolina. Say the name Irina Zarutska. Irina Zarutska was just riding public transit. By the way, she was a refugee from Ukraine, of all places, and she came to Charlotte, North Carolina. And a terrible person, well, you saw what happened. I can't describe it here on TikTok without some sort of community guideline being violated. But if you haven't seen the video, you absolutely should. This individual should not have been on the streets, 14 prior arrests. And it really makes you wonder, why are we putting up with this? Why are we allowing so many people that have committed these crimes to keep on being released? The magistrate judge continued to release this individual, and this is a horrific thing. It's really interesting. The media was totally covering George Floyd, tens of thousands of articles, reconfigured and changed the entire American body politic. Yet when it came to Irina Zarutska, the entire media was quiet, silent. In fact, we forced them to cover the story. Why do you think that is? What was the difference between George Floyd and Irina Zarutska? Why did the left care so much about George Floyd and they couldn't care less about Irina Zarutska? What could the difference be? I wonder. Would love for you guys to leave some comments.
Well, I mean, if you actually see it, he was actually doing truth to power here. He was actually calling people out on their fallacies and their falsehoods and their decisive thinking. And they're basically he's a very big critical thinking guy. And these guys were all, that he was always challenging at these rallies were people who were, not non-critical thinkers, I guess, dummies. I don't know, morons. Who knows? People who had no idea what the hell they
Well,
were talking about, and yet had this sort of wonderful, well-paid college education that didn't teach them anything about authors or creative sciences or anything whatsoever. It's a tragic loss, guys. And so, yeah,
I do think that it's ironic that on literally on the day that this happened, Florida, I think the Third District Court of Appeals in Florida released a decision saying that it was from up here in the north, so maybe it was the first district, first DCA,
the
because
third issue, I think.
it happened that the case that prompted the whole thing happened here in Pensacola. An activist decided to strap a gun to his waist and and parade around downtown in order to get arrested. And he did get arrested and charged with probably brandishing or
brandishing.
something like that. And the District Court of Appeals said that since the Bruin decision, the state Supreme Court had a case that was Florida law for several years, back from 2013, I think, or something like that, and and they had that affirmed Florida's ban on open carry. Well, now with Bruin, they say Bruin now controls, and according to Bruin, you cannot have a ban on open carry.
Good. I know it's
So,
going on the ballot this next cycle.
well, it may or may not have to. I mean, he may put it on there just to put it on there, but
Yeah.
this with this decision, I mean, depending on how solid they feel about it, they may not have to. Although,
Well,
knowing DeSantis, he'll probably push it straight through just so he can
yeah.
have credit for codifying and solidifying our rights, enshrining them
be
within the Florida Constitution.
it'd be great for Casey. It'd be a great race, great
It would be a good thing
call
for
to
Casey
action
to
for
carry.
Casey
For sure.
DeSantis' governor's race. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, also one thing for sure is that whenever you're saying the Constitution through the amendment process, it's a lot harder to get rid of, and it's a lot harder to
Indeed.
reverse. And
Indeed.
so that way, like you said, codifying it and ensuring it, securing it there for open carry for Florida, I think would be great.
Well, I'm not saying I don't support it. I think it's a great idea. Let's do it. I'm just concerned that it won't happen because I think it's a great idea to do it as a way of enshrining it in the Constitution and making sure that it's hard that it's not just the whim of some scared politician in the future that gets rid
Right.
of it.
Well, guess what happened this morning? It looks like Russia flew some drones over Poland. And a little bit of international news here. And it looks like Poland actually had to shoot them down for the first time. I guess they've used any type of military action, they said, more or less since World War II. And I mean,
Yeah.
it might be a little over dramatization here while it's going on, but the fact is that Poland has been out of the mix of any kind of confrontation on purpose. And this doesn't look too good.
Well, I think that what Poland did was entirely appropriate. I'm glad that they
Yeah.
did it. But I also think it's one of those things that's just not going to go very far.
I mean, Putin is just banging his chest because that's what he does. At least he's not riding on horseback without a shirt on it.
Right, and it's not, and he didn't attack Poland. I mean, I've heard a few narratives like that. He's attacking
Right.
Poland.
No.
What he did was he tried to take a shortcut through Poland to get to Ukraine, and
Right.
so that his drones wouldn't get shot down by Ukraine, and he could attack them freely because apparently he's having trouble getting his stuff in there past all the American air defense.
Right. I guess right now I read an article that in the NATO defense of Ukraine currently, there's 18 different countries, 18 or 19 different countries now who are patrolling the airways, the
Airspace.
air traffic area through different, air forces, like I'm assuming everything else. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's I wonder who's really paying for it. I mean, everybody keeps saying Europe's paying for it. I'm shocked and surprised if they are. I'm sure America's probably flipping a lot of the bill that we probably
It's
don't
hard to
even want to
say.
talk
I mean,
about.
it depends on where the planes take off.
Right, exactly.
And frankly, I think that Trump is very inclined to say, you guys want to be big boys, you go, and a lot of this stuff they do in defiance of Trump. So who
Yeah.
knows? But
Well,
the
strangely,
more I say this kind of stuff out loud, the more I think it would be exactly like them to go just pull up to that same pump, that they pull up to every day, drain the gas out of it, and just say, yeah, this was part of a NATO operation.
one thing I was surprised though that the European leaders were actually asking Trump to strengthen his sanctions on Russia, which I was very happy to see that because I mean they were the ones who actually were fighting it, 60 or 70 days ago because they're all doing business with Russia, and now that that business is over because America's tariffs and punishment of them if they continue to do that. Now they want to go ahead and just continue to economically strangle them, which I'm all for. That's great.
Absolutely.
Strangle the crap out of the Russian economy and get them back on par.
Well, they're to a point now where they have been um, seriously inconveniencing the Russian
Right.
oligarchs. And that's how ultimately that's how this thing is uh, uh, going to be resolved is when the oligarchs stop uh, supporting him. So I mean, they're very, very, very close to being to Putin really kind of losing out. Putin getting very desperate very quickly. He's got to have a win of some kind soon,
Right.
or all these sanctions are finally going to have the effect that we've said that they would,
Well,
just like Venezuela and Maduro.
yeah. I mean, one issue with Putin though is I really don't know at what point he cares about how many people he has lost. I don't know if there's a
He doesn't care
number, a
about any
magic
of it.
number.
What Putin cares about is making sure that the oligarchs that are his actual power base are happy. The oligarchs don't care about the man on the street. Putin doesn't care about the man on the street. That's why I say when the oligarchs finally get upset, it would take massive in the street protests for Putin to get Putin's attention, and even then, it'd be the oligarchs that push him into doing it because the people would focus all their efforts on doing whatever it takes to not do business with the people who are supporting Trump.
Right. I mean, it's a big ass mess over there with that.
And I want to pivot into Venezuela because I've come up with a theory that with the reason that Trump is kind of amping up all these big carrier groups and stealth fighters and all this big hardware that he's putting over there, what he's really doing is he's focusing all of the attention on that military hardware when what he's probably going to do, since if you think about it, he has a he has designated Venezuela as a narco terror country. He has a warrant against Maduro himself, and he's got everyone, the entire country and the entire world looking at all this military hardware. And all he's going to do is come around the back door and pull him out with a SEAL team. He's going to go in there and arrest him and pull him out of the country. And there's not a damn thing they can do about it. That's my prediction.
So what do you think about Netanyahu's attack on Qatar against Hamas? Like, I guess Qatar's pretty upset about it. But, the fact is, if they're housing terrorists, I mean, you go where the terrorists are. I mean, you don't, it's not an attack against a nation. It's an attack against people who are in your nation.
Oh, I'm sure some innocent people got killed, which is horrible. I mean, and Israel should be somewhat, you know, at least regretful about that.
Well,
But
I'm sure they are.
I'm
I'd
sure they
hope so.
regret the collateral damage. But at the same time, what are you going to do with countries that allow people to hide behind terrorists, or hide behind civilians? You get all they go in there and they get around schools and hospitals. That is a standard Hamas Islamic terrorist kind of move, is to go get in there because they don't believe in the value of human life at all.
No. Now, Hamas is very big about doing charitable stuff as long as it only benefits them. You know, they don't really care about benefiting the people outside of their class and everything. And
Right.
so, I mean, you know, everybody always used to, if you read a lot of Palestinian stuff like from the PLO and Hezbollah and Hamas and everything, you'll see a lot of people say that Hamas is feeding us. They're taking care of us. And yes, they're feeding you just enough to like them, not enough for you to survive on your own.
It's worse than that because what Hamas is feeding them is the food that was being sent over there to feed the Palestinians. The Hamas people just grab it
Exactly.
and
They
then
steal it.
generously give it to them.
Yes. Which is was supposed to go to you guys anyway. I actually we're finding out we have a listenership here in Lebanon. All you Lebanese people who are listening to this, please realize that you know the food that you know the Palestinians and all the Gaza people and everything are getting was intended for them in the first place, and it was only given to them by the terrorists because the terrorists are hijacking it and stealing it, kind of like the warlords in Somalia were stealing all those so that we're giving to Somalia and Rwanda and different country after country after country after country. These people steal.
It is literally like having $1,000 paycheck and someone coming and stealing your $1,000 paycheck and then finding out that you are struggling because someone has stolen your paycheck and then coming and giving you $200 and you thank them for the $200. That is exactly what the Palestinians are doing to Hamas.
It's a mess.
It is a mess.
No, I mean, I have no idea how they're gonna. I mean, right now, fixing all these issues. I mean, Trump has already done a lot to fix, like I think we said before, 6 or 7 different nations that were fighting and creating peace in those areas. The Hamas, Hezbollah, Israel, Jewish thing has been going on for what, a few thousand years. Might be going on for a few thousand more. Who knows?
Well, at least a couple of thousand years because I mean, but because before Jesus existed, there was no um Islam.
Exactly. Well, there's the Jewish people and the Philistines. And if you read the Bible and everything, if you're a Bible believer, and the Philistines,
I
I guess,
forget.
were some sort of like a Islam, as Palestinian kind of group.
Yeah, I forget who the Arabs were worshiping during the time of Jesus.
I don't
I
know.
want to say it was Baal or something like that.
I think it was Baal. Baal was like their god and everything else that they were worshiping, like in Babylonian days and Babylon and stuff like that. The Tower of Babel and all that, they were worshiping Baal and Zeus and other types of gods like that who were anti, Judeo-Christian. And again, there was no like Bible or anything like that at the time. Also, back then, if you believe all those stories back then, people lived like 700, 800 years. Methuselah was like 936 years old. I mean, people lived a lot longer times back then, or they just stated everything differently. I don't really know exactly which because I was not there. And ChatGPT can probably tell us something.
Yeah, no, it is.
The wonderful AI of life.
Yeah, really. I mean, actually, it's a whole bunch of gods I'd never heard of. Kaaba,
Heard of Abba? There's a band called Abba.
Baal, not Abba, Kaaba, A.
Oh,
And
okay.
then Hubal and Allah, Late, Al Late, Al Uze, and Manate. I mean, they're just Nabatine.
Yeah, a lot of different
I'm sure I'm
ones.
butchering most of these names, but I mean, none of them were Islamic. Although there was one, what they call it, they characterized as pre-Islamic. So it makes me wonder if if these are the people that involved in.
Right.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
It's kind of
But it's going to be
kind of
going
a
on for a long time, probably. Is our
it's
kind of a point.
kind of an aside.
I mean, as much as they want to bring peace, and I'm sure Trump wants to be the peacemaker here, I don't really see it happening anytime soon. I do
Hard to
think,
say.
somebody should rebuild that place that got torn down by a whole bunch of bombs. I mean, it looks like a whole bunch of rubble crap. I mean, people are living in stones. I mean, this is 2025, guys. The Stone Age is over. Let's go ahead and turn them stones into condos or something. I don't know, houses or anything livable. But I don't know how they're going to do that.
I don't know. I mean, it's something that we've been trying for years, but at the same time, step one is to stop being deferential to these people. Stop. We kind of equate the way that we treat religion with the way that they treat religion, and they're just
Exactly.
not similar at all.
It's not.
It's not a minor policy disagreement. It is a fundamental difference where one, I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of horrible things that have been done in the name of Christianity, but the stuff that was done in the name of Islam, it's very they specifically justify what they're doing through the Quran. I keep going back to when the Barbary pirates were imprisoning American sailors and British sailors and any white sailor they could run across. And you ask them, why do they do it? And they say, because the Quran says that we can, because you're infidel.
Yeah. It really explains a lot of the difference. It's very similar between the Republicans and Democrats. I mean, we keep talking about the violence here in the political atmosphere, and Republicans, except for that one guy, that one crazy guy in Atlanta who did the CDC shooting, that's only one right winger, and then you got like 12 or 13 left wingers killing
I'm not going
kids
to
and
say
killing
I'm not
people.
going to say there aren't some whacked out right wing people,
Oh,
because
there's
there
whack.
definitely are.
Yeah, there's
But
there's a lot of
but
whacked out
you
MAGA guys.
but you just don't see them come online and advocate for the death of the
Mm-mm.
opposition party in the
They're not that
same way
whacked.
that they do that the liberals do. The liberals do it all the time. I just watched a montage of a bunch of young liberals. I want to say, late teens, early 20s, and these kids are just sitting there singing the praises, literally dancing
You know,
at the death of someone. And they justify it by saying this is what the Republicans would do, but it's never what the Republicans have done.
no, it's not. I mean, we have a code. We actually put people first. We love people. I mean, we love the unborn. I mean,
I
we
don't know about a
respect the
code, but most
Constitution.
of us were raised right, at least.
Yeah, I mean, this whole idea of hate being justified by violence is a whole gang-like mentality that's taken over the entire culture of the party.
Well, it's not just here. It's like over in Britain. There are people
Yeah,
being arrested in Britain for carrying British flags.
exactly, and that's wrong.
I mean, how dumb can you possibly be?
I mean, is that a threat? Is that authoritarian? Is that nationalism? Because you actually are patriotic and give a damn about the country you live in? How in the hell is that bad?
I watched a British police officer arrest someone because he had said something that distressed another person, and they reported him for distressing them.
And I'm sure they're okay with burning the British flag, aren't they?
I'm sure they probably are. I have not heard any conversation about that, but that's a very good question.
Yeah, actually, one good question about burning flags. I mean, we talked about this on the last show, and we got a lot of comments and everything else on our segment about that, about the American flag burning. But one thing that we never talk about is the other countries that burn their flags and what the punishments are for that. It's kind of like people don't realize America has more freedoms than almost any of these countries should put together. I mean, a lot of these countries you go to jail for being gay. A lot of these countries you go to jail or imprisoned or possibly put to death for abortions. I mean, they consider that murder. I mean, a lot of these nations are very, very strict on no freedom of speech whatsoever. None.
And they're trying to do that here. The
Yeah,
first
they're
thing they're
trying
going
to
to have
make
to do
us
to get
like
rid of
them.
but the only way that they're going to get rid of the First Amendment is by getting rid of the Second Amendment first.
Exactly. And then the other amendments don't really matter. The Fourth Amendment, the 10th Amendment of states' rights and everything else. I mean, why should the states have rights if the federal government's going to be dictating everything?
Well, I definitely believe that the founding fathers considered the Second Amendment pretty important, given the fact that it is that it's right after the most important one, the Fourth Amendment or the First Amendment.
Yeah, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, and freedom of
All of that,
religion.
all that stuff is things. All of the reason for those amendments, initially they didn't think they needed them because they said they really are just restating things that are already in the Constitution. But
Exactly.
at the end of the day, they were wrong about that. They were convinced that they were wrong, and over the years, it's been proven that they were wrong.
Yeah, like Trump yesterday has basically federally approved prayer in public schools. And so, which should not have federal approval. I mean, this whole separation of church and state that everybody keeps talking about has nothing at all to do with prayer in public schools. It is not prayer controlling the schools. It is not church controlling education. It is the freedom to choose or not to choose if you want to pray and not be demonized or penalized for doing it. It is your
or
freedom of
not
speech
doing
that
it.
people, once again, are violating, and they want to do it violently or aggressively as they have continuously, and they need to stop.
Well, in my mind, praying in school, you should be allowed to pray in school. You should be allowed to pray as a group in school. I don't think that the teachers should lead kids in prayer. I think that the kids should be allowed to pray. I
Right,
don't think that
exactly.
people should be penalized for not praying.
No. Now, remember we talked about the mandates of the vaccine mandates? That was one thing actually that YouTube would not let us post. So we posted a segment. I forgot to tell you about that. And we ran an ad for it and everything else on YouTube and as well as Apple Podcasts. And both of them blocked it because they were saying it was false data. And to follow up on that, there's actually an article yesterday in the Daytona Ledger, or the Daytona Daily Paper, saying that the schools are requiring vaccines in Florida still, and they're bucking what the governor said of not mandating it. They're
I'm sure
mandating it.
I'm sure that there are Democrat counties that are doing that.
The Republican counties too, both.
They say they
I
are.
guess the fear, the whole fear of the unknown and being, tribalized and everything else and attacked for like, oh, you're trying to make all of our children sick, is overwhelming the governor's mandate.
Well, the bottom line is there's a lot of very, very questionable science involved in these vaccines. And I think it's entirely appropriate at the state and national level, and HHS is doing the same thing, that they not require someone to take a vaccine where the science is suspect.
Exactly. They
Just
should talk to their doctor and see if their doctor wants them to get it. Or
exactly. This is
doctor's
back
rights,
to
patients' rights.
yeah, this is back to people being in charge of their own healthcare, right? I thought people were supposed to be in charge of their own healthcare, their own body, right?
No, only when it comes to killing a baby.
Only when
That's it.
comes to murdering children.
Only when
Got
it
it.
comes to eliminating the unborn are you allowed to be in charge. Because if you're actually once you're born, you're not allowed to be in charge of anything. Pretty much it's all up to the state, and it's all up to the government to be in charge of everything you're doing. Period. According to the Democrat Party, and that seems to be the narrative that they're going with, which is sad. I mean, there's a lot of Democrats I know who are not on that ship, but unfortunately, their national party leadership is. That's a problem.
Ugh,
But
crazy.
yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of interesting stuff. We got the governor's race here starting to heat up here in Florida. We got Paul Renner, who we mentioned last week, who's actually running now. He's actually, he's starting to pick up a lot of steam and talking to a lot of the RECs. I was at a REC meeting, which is a Republican executive committee meeting tonight over here in Flagler County, and Paul Renner is going to be coming there to speak, and Byron Donalds is speaking in Duval County and Alachua County here over the next couple of weeks. And so it's going to be an interesting race here between them two on the Republican primary. But I guess Trump has already endorsed Ashley Moody for the Senate race for her reelection. I don't know I don't really know if there's any Republican running against her or not. I do wish some of these endorsements would not happen until the primary is over and let the people have their own say. But I'm not the one doing the endorsement. I mean, the president can do whatever the heck he wants. He's the president.
I think that Ashley and Pam have a solid relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that probably what happened was Trump makes his own decisions, but I imagine that I wouldn't be, let me restate that by saying, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that Pam Bondi made some solid recommendations. And
right.
Susie Wiles, too.
Exactly. And the Republican Party of Florida, I guess, today endorsed Ashley Moody as well. So
yeah, right.
I don't know if any Republicans are going to run against her or not. I have no idea.
I'm unaware of any controversy she's had as Attorney General.
Exactly. I mean, she's pretty straight and clean and by the book and kind of vanilla. I mean, not that exciting or engaging, but
if anything, she's a little blasé. But you know what? I like blasé politicians.
Yeah. It's good for Attorney General.
Yeah, but because well, especially Attorney General, but the thing about attention-seeking politicians is they do bad things to get attention. Blasé politicians do what they think is the right thing And whether it's right or not, at least you can stand behind the fact that they believe to be doing the right thing,
It looks
instead
like
of
Miss
someone's just doing
Jenkins.
something to get attention.
Yeah, it looks like a person named Miss. I forgot her first name, but Mrs. Jenkins out of Brevard County is a Democrat. She just jumped into a race for U.S. Senate, and so it's going to be an interesting Democrat primary to see how much of them argue over. Because I guess Florida, possibly a Democrat can win statewide. I don't know. I really don't
I don't
know
know
what the
about
likelihood of
now.
that is. I think it's very slim to none. Because, I mean, right now, statistically, Democrats are shrinking in Florida, Republicans are growing. And with the new redistricting coming up, we're probably going to pick up either Broward County and cut that up a little bit and make it more Republican, or we're probably also going to pick up Orange County or Osceola County. And so that there might become more Republican with the mid-cycle redistricting,
Yeah, right.
which they're starting regardless of what anybody cares about. And so it's going to happen. And so anybody that thinks it's not going to happen is dreaming. We're going to have a mid-decade redistricting here in Florida. And I think the chances of that happening are better than the chances of Florida winning their next game, you know?
Well, I view it like this. The last time we did our redistricting, we had to work under the rule that we counted people illegally in the country,
Exactly.
and that skewed the results. So all we're doing now, in my view, is
Correcting it.
fixing the results that were inappropriately
We got to fix
created.
that stuff. I mean, it
Exactly.
is broken badly. Also, the good part is that whenever you have to do petition cards, like a lot of candidates are doing now, it's a redistricting year. You can get them done anywhere in the state.
I
You
know,
don't have to
right?
get them just in your own little district. So if you're running for Congress and you need it, you can get them statewide
You absolutely
because
can.
you have no idea exactly where your district is, and that goes for county commissioner or city council, any kind of district thing. If there's a redistricting ordered, now I guess you have to wait for the order for it to happen. But I mean, it's going to be interesting if it's going to be done by the 2026 election, because qualifying for congressional races is in April, which is just a short,
Yeah,
9 months away.
it's a lot closer than you realize it is.
Exactly. Because people have no idea, and comes from our experience in campaigns of over 30 years with the political matrix, by the way. If you guys want to hire us, we're always up for hire. But whenever you campaign, basically you can shut down the months of November through February because nobody wants to talk about politics during Santa Claus time or the bill payments of Santa Claus time. Because, it's just, I mean, you can do some fundraising, you can do some light campaigning, you can do some you should do a lot of food drives and doing a lot to help the homeless is what you should be doing if you're running for office. But if you're a self-absorbed narcissistic candidate, like a few of them are out there, then it would be a good idea just to go ahead and sit tight and relax. And once February is over, you'll be off to the races. But if you're running for Congress, you have to qualify by April, so it's going to really put the entire thing in queue on how you do your petition cards and how you qualify and what district you're in and do you live in this district or not, what the residency requirements are, and so on and so forth. And all the pieces of the sausage being made. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But yeah. So what else we got going on today?
I mean, that kind of wraps up today.
Yeah, I think so. We wrapped everything up in a Reader's Digest form.
All right.
But basically, I do want to tell everybody thank you for subscribing to us on YouTube. And we're on Apple Podcasts now, so we're getting quite a few views on Apple now. Spotify, guys, wake up. We're on Spotify. Please, somebody do something on Spotify. I know it's a big universe of music and country and not much politics on Spotify that I can actually find, really. Actually, I couldn't find hardly any conservative talking heads like us on Spotify, but yeah, I'm not really on there all that much either. And so, but YouTube is going great. Our X account's going great. We're all going to get back on Facebook now that Zuckerberg is a good Trumper. And we're not going to be shadow banned on Facebook like we are on TikTok at the moment because we
Exactly.
keep picking on the TikTok people. The China
Oh,
people
cool.
don't like us.
Absolutely. Anyway, we love that you support us. We love that you listen to us. We love if you love to hate us. Just keep on
Exactly.
watching and listening, and we'll educate you whether you like it or not.
It might not be education to you, but it might be entertainment. And whatever. It's if you actually had a brain, it would be educational. But if you don't have a brain, just want to think it's entertaining, then hey, go for that too. But real quick, you got that coffee mug there, or that drink mug with a political matrix thing. How can people order that?
I mean, I didn't make this one.
They didn't make that one. Well, we're gonna make something just like that. So yeah, I think there's a QR code on there. Where's the QR code go?
I have no idea. Rob gave it to me.
We're gonna make some of them here. Pretty soon we'll have some coffee mugs and sweatshirts and all that wonderful stuff for the winter and Christmas gifts and everything else. So you guys have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and talk to y'all later. Talk to you later, Scott.
I'll tell you later, bud.